Romania is also among Ukraine's most vocal supporters. It's talking to the US and France about increasing the number of NATO troops there. A short time ago, I spoke with Romania's Foreign Minister Bogdan Aurescu and asked him what part Romania is playing in this current diplomatic dialogue.
The support for the Euro-Atlantic values is very high in Romania. So that's why we have asked for the consolidation of the NATO presence in Romania, for the consolidation of US troops in Romania. And we are very glad that not only United States, but also France has decided to deploy more troops in Romania. Actually, I would like to share with you the fact that on the 3rd of February, I will host in Bucharest a meeting of the foreign ministers of the Bucharest 9 format, which is the format gathering all 9 allies on the eastern flank, together with the French Minister of Foreign Affairs, who is visiting Bucharest on the same day, in order to discuss about the security situation in our neighborhood in the Black Sea region. And the Foreign Minister of Ukraine will also join us during that meeting. So we will be able to discuss ways and means how to, continue to promote dialogue and to reach de-escalation in the region.
And one of President Putin's demands in order to avert a further diplomatic or potentially military crisis was the withdrawal of NATO troops from Bulgaria and Romania. Is there any flexibility on that from your perspective?
Of course not. And as you well know, the NATO reply on the proposals advanced by Russia in December, and also the US written reply to those proposals were quite clear in that respect. Any kind of demand for withdrawing the NATO troops and equipment deployed already on the territory of the Eastern allies is something which is very much linked with the Article 5 commitment of the NATO allies. So being very much connected with the core, essence, with the essence of the NATO mission, which is collective defense, it is unacceptable to have any kind of third-party veto on this issue.
I'm sure, Foreign Minister, you are following the words of Vladimir Putin very closely. So I'd be interested to get your response to his remarks today, particularly that he feels the West is simply not taking Russia's security concerns into account.
Yes, I have followed with a lot of attention what he said today during the press conference with President Orban. Among many things he said, he again said that the missile defense site in Romania, for instance, and in Poland represents a threat to the security of Russia, which is absolutely not true. It is nonsense to say that a purely defensive site which is not directed against Russia, but to possible missile threats from outside the Euro-Atlantic space, represents a threat to Russia. And as I already mentioned, we are ready to allow Russia to check whether there are any kind of offensive missiles in Romania. There are not, that's for sure. Then, he said that Ukraine will become soon a NATO member, if I understood correctly his remarks. But this is not on the agenda of the alliance right now. There is no imminent decision to accept Ukraine as a NATO member state.
How concerned are you about the potential vulnerability of Moldova to Russian designs or aggression? Perhaps you could explain for our international viewers some of the geopolitical vulnerability that your neighbor faces.
Well, Moldova is not a member of NATO, but we have witnessed recently, for instance, in October, a gas crisis in the Republic of Moldova. And that was clearly prompted by some Russian actions against this country. It was perhaps a very good case study of hybrid action against a country in the eastern neighborhood. And both Romania and the European Union have acted decisively in order to support Moldova to cope with such kind of challenges.